Good afternoon, Bucknutters. Welcome into What We Learned Live following Ohio State's way too close for comfort 21-17 win over Nebraska, although could be worse. That we could be sitting here talking about a loss. Welcome to the show. I will be joined by Bill Kurelic in just a moment. It was a big day of recruiting for the Buckeyes. Not exactly a great show they put on for the recruits, but we'll have the dean to join us to talk recruiting and to give his thoughts on the game. Then we'll be joined by Heater, a.k.a. Heath Schneider, to get his thoughts on the game. And then after post-game interviews, we'll hear from Pat Murphy and Steve Helwagen from Ohio Stadium. I am Dave Biddle. Welcome to the show, my friends. I know. They look like anything but a legit national championship team. There's nothing else I can say. That doesn't mean they're not going to win it, because they looked like anything but a legit national championship team when they lost to Virginia Tech. We can make all kinds of excuses, but this just very disappointing. I am markedly more disappointed in the offense than the defense. The defense stepped up overall today, put in some bad positions. I mean, to score 21 points on this Nebraska defense, not good. Not good at all. And you know, I mean, and the defense, a lot of times, was put in terrible positions, and they stepped up. Did the defense play great the entire game? Of course not. But overall, I was happy with how the defense played. Not happy at all with how the offense played. Anyway, welcome into the show. So let's get into some things. So, I mean, you know, I'm done calling Chip Kelly an offensive guru. I still think he can be a good offensive coordinator for this team. But my gosh, like what were they working on the last 2 weeks? They were severely outcoached today. Nebraska outcoached them on both sides of the ball. I said I'm more disappointed with the offense than the defense. Doesn't mean I'm not disappointed with the defense. I mean, Chip Kelly, at first I was like, is he not here? And they finally, they showed him up in the press box. Okay, he's there. Not good at all. Not good. And, of course, the targeting penalty on Arvell Reese, awful. But Ohio State never should have been in that position. And we're used to that anyway, watching Ohio State football. There's going to be a egregious targeting penalty every game. I think we know that by now. But off, and then it took them 10 minutes to review it. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, they're going to get it right since it's taking this long. It took them that long to review it, clearly not targeting. And again, in real time, I give the officials a pass. It's tough in real time. The replay official gets no leeway. It's the easiest job in the world. There's 15 different camera views. That was not targeting. Slow motion, multiple, more than multiple, like I said, like a dozen camera reviews, 15 different camera angles, slow motion. It's the easiest job in the world, high definition, and they still got it wrong. They reviewed that for 10 minutes and still got it wrong. Ridiculous. To kick a guy out of a sporting event should take a lot. They've got to do something about that. But that had nothing really to do with today. This team does not look like they are a legit national championship team. And the good thing is now Oregon's up on Illinois as soon as I say that. Maybe Oregon is, but let's say Oregon's your juggernaut team in college football this year. I mean, Ohio State went to their place, lost by 1 in a game Ohio State probably should have won. Raucous environment. So, I still think Ohio State, there's a chance they could achieve all their goals, but didn't like what I saw today at all. I think both things can be true. You can say, well, there's a chance they could get the ship righted, and they could be all right in the end. But there's no way of saying today gives you confidence that's going to happen. Could it happen? Yes, I suppose. But it's just, man, and special teams looked like early on Ohio State was going to win the special teams battle for a change. Then Jaden Fielding missed the field goal. Looked like Joe Boserman trying to complete a pass there. It's like, geez, was he trying to kill somebody in Morrill Tower with that field goal? My God. Jeez. He was like trying to shatter a window at Morrill Tower with that field goal attempt. I mean, that's awful. Same kid that kicked the ball out of bounds 3 times and a half. And the punter, McGuire, had one good punt in the stat book that went really about 35 yards and bounced about 30 yards. That looks good for him. And then overall, he's not a good punter. That's why they brought in the other kid from Australia that didn't win the job. They brought in the transfer from Buffalo. He didn't win the job, so they had to go back to McGuire, who they already had last year. And if they were confident in him, they wouldn't have brought in 2 other guys, one on scholarship, one that had been a starter at Buffalo for the last 2 years. So they brought in as a preferred walk-on. So they obviously did not have confidence that McGuire was the man, or they wouldn't have brought in 2 punters. And we were told entering camp, those two were the ones fighting for the job. Then McGuire got the job. McGuire's not the problem. It's just many things with this team. It's just the offensive line without Josh Simmons. Now Zen's hurt, although Zen was playing awful. I hope Zen's okay. It doesn't look like he is. Then they moved Donovan Jackson out to left tackle. He's like 6'4", maybe. Donovan Jackson is a guard all the way. He's your left tackle. It's not good for Ohio State. They put Luke Montgomery in there at left guard, although with as bad as Zed Mahalski looked. So we learned a lot of things today, none of them good about this Ohio State team. We learned Will Howard started the game great, 10 of 10, and then ended the game not so well. Will Howard's good for one or two plays where you're like, what in the hell is he doing a game? That interception was awful, but then he starts the game 10 for 10. Overall, I like Will Howard. All right, let's bring in the dean of Ohio State football recruiting, Bill Kurelic. Bill, what a impressive performance they put on for the recruits today, my friend.
Surely you jest.
I do.
Yes, I know you do. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I guess another thing that immediately I think about is I was talking to someone at the high school game, an athletic director at the high school game I was at last night, and I was telling him how when I saw the schedule at the beginning of the season, I thought, oh, they got Indiana before Michigan. That's good. You know, you have a game at home that's an easy win. Not so fast, my friend.
Mm-mm.
That Indiana game now is going to be bigger than ever, I think. Indiana beat Washington today. I'm pretty sure, I think they're going to be undefeated, and that's going to be a heck of a game. But Ohio State's got 3 games now that going to Penn State, having Indiana and Michigan at home. You know, they've really got 3 interesting games in those 3 games. And, you know, I've said all along, I think they'll beat Michigan, and I do. But they're going to have to win at Penn State, and they're going to have to win at Indiana. And they're going to have to be able to run the ball, though. I mean, they could not run the ball today, really. And when you can't run the ball, that makes it really, really tough. So hopefully they can make the adjustments and do what they need to do. I guess on the other side of the flip side of the coin is the defense did have 3 sacks. I think they had 13 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, a big goal line stand. Mm-hmm. Cody Simon really came through with some big plays in the fourth quarter. So those are some things that were positive. But again, we all know that wasn't what any of us expected today.
No, Ohio State was favored by 25.5. They win by 4, and they were trailing in the fourth quarter. It's like, geez, a lot to clean up. Let's get into recruiting. Huge day. You guys on official visits. Let's start with the guys on official visits. Ohio State verbal commit. Zahir Mathis. Obviously, it's Ohio State. Penn State's trying to flip him, as you've talked about. He's on an official visit. What are you hearing about Zahir Mathis?
Well, I think as we've talked about before, I think it comes down to keeping him in the class away from Penn State. And he has been back to Penn State. This official visit this weekend was well planned. It was well planned in that they saved the official visit for in the season. Now, obviously, you would have liked a better performance, but sometimes that doesn't happen, and it didn't today. But still, you've got him on campus, and you really would love to close the deal now, have him completely shut his recruitment down. Will he do that? Can't say yet. I mean, his official visit is only halfway through right now. So the hope is to get him to shut his recruitment down completely after this official visit. Then you've got Damola Ajadahan, Georgia Tech offensive tackle commitment.
I was just looking at that. I was practicing my pronunciation there. Thank you. Yep, go.
One thing you can say is, hey, Damola, you saw, we need more offensive line help here.
You could play right now, actually.
And, he is a very good offensive tackle. He's underrated, in my opinion. He's a 4-star guy, but he's the number 27 offensive tackle in the country. I think his decision is going to come down to, does he stay with Georgia Tech, or does he flip to one of three schools, Ohio State, Georgia, or South Carolina? Again, I think a lot will hang on this official visit because he and his mom are making the official visit this weekend, and neither one of them has ever been to Ohio State prior to this official visit.
If you're a recruit going to a game like this, like we're going to be hypercritical. Like, even though, I mean, Ohio State's, if they win out, they're all good. You know, we've seen seasons, 2002, they had about 10 games. It's like, this team doesn't look like a national championship team. They won 2014. So we know anything's possible. But if you're a recruit at a game today, do you look at it like we do? Or are you just like soaking it in? Ohio State won. Who cares? They won by 4. What are most, I know general question, but most recruits, how are they looking at it, Bill?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because they don't. Ohio State fans right now are what in the world happened? But the recruits really don't look at it like that in most cases. Each recruit is his own person. But generally speaking, when I talk to these kids after they're done, the ones on unofficial visits, I talked to them today. The ones on official visits, I talk to them after the official visits are over. I can almost guarantee that every one of them will talk about how impressed they were with the atmosphere and the crowd all staying and the hoopla and everything. They'll be impressed with all that. And the Ohio State staff, Mark Pantonia's staff, they do a great job of wowing these kids on whether they're on official visits or unofficial visits. They do a great job, and that's what the kids will be talking about when all is said and done. And he's not on an official visit this weekend, but Jakeem Stewart is at Ohio State right now, and he is a tremendous defensive lineman. He's reclassified to the class of 2025. I fully expect him to be back at Ohio State for the Michigan game, making his official visit at that point. So while it's really hard to get a great player from Louisiana to leave Louisiana and leave LSU and come north, the fact that he's visiting Ohio State twice, an unofficial and an official within a matter of approximately a month, that shows you there's a legitimate interest there.
Let's move on to the 2026 class. Rodney Dunham. He's 2026, right? I have that.
Yeah,
correct.
He's a baseball guy, actually.
Baseball and edge rusher from Charlotte. So he's going to play baseball and football at Ohio State, Bill.
Well,
hopefully.
if he does, that'll be quite a feat by him. But he's a baseball guy and a football guy. He's got big time baseball potential, but he also has scholarship offers from Ohio State and a lot of other big time programs across the country.
I'm a little under the weather for those that are wondering. I got my water here. My voice, hopefully it makes it through the podcast. So you hit on the guys that I wanted to mention with Zahir Mathis, Dunham, Stewart, and all those guys. Demola. All right. What about other 2026 guys? We hit on one 2026 guy, and any 2027 guys that we need to know about.
Well, Storm Miller's. I saw him, I think, the second game of the high school season. He's a linebacker. And his brother is one of the top offensive tackles in the really, in my opinion, in the country. He's really good. He's Blake Miller, plays for Clemson. And he's going to be an NFL guy. But Storm is absolutely not a done deal to Clemson. He is highly considering Ohio State. He's considering a few other schools too. But he's a guy that I just loved when I saw him play for Strongsville up around Cleveland earlier this season. He's a 6'3", 220-pound linebacker that I think is going to be a really good linebacker in college.
Man, so let me get you out of here on this. Ohio State's offensive line. I'll get you. I mean, they were without Josh Simmons today, but this offensive line I thought coming into today, they were actually playing better than I expected. Overall this year, not good today. Nebraska, they were eating their lunch for most of the game.
I would 100% agree with. I thought that, like you did, Dave, going into this game, I thought they had become a pretty good offensive line. Now, that was when they had Josh Simmons. That makes a big difference. As we saw today, that replacing Josh Simmons may not be it's not as easy as one would hope it would be. But I agree. I really was impressed with what the offensive line had done going into this game for the whole season. Can they get it back on track for next season? Well, I hope so, because they're going to Penn State, and that's not going to be a easy place to win a game at. Even though it's a noon game and not a night whiteout, it's going to be a tough place to win a game at. They go to Penn State next weekend, and I don't know. Maybe you know what Michalski's injury is or how serious it is, but
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know right now. They moved Donovan Jackson to his spot, and they moved Luke Montgomery to guard, and we didn't get a good look at it because that was so late, but we may get a good look at it next weekend. Who knows?
Yes, sir. Well, Dean, I appreciate it. He is the dean of Ohio State football recruiting, Bill Kurelic. Get on Bucknuts, read his stuff. He's the best in the business. He's the dean. Appreciate it, my friend.
I appreciate it, Dave, and have fun with the rest of your podcast here.
Thank you. Hopefully my voice holds up. I have a choir with my daughter. My daughter was home from school the last 2 days. I think I have what she has, but I'm just talking sports. I'll be okay. Thanks, Dean. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. He is the dean of Ohio State football recruiting. Oh, and just on time, my man in Amsterdam, Heath Schneider, a.k.a. Heater. He's been with Bucknuts for about 20 years. My guy, like, where do you want to start at? Like, I'm most disappointed in the offense.
Yeah,
there's a lot of disappointment to go around. Just your initial thoughts on this game before I fire questions at you.
So I wrote it in my immediately after the game analysis. The everything for the rest of this season rests, and all the questions rest on offense and offensive line. You have to find a way to replace Simmons. Zen looked horrifyingly bad for most of the game, and then got hurt. So if he was horrifyingly bad and he was your first choice for backup, what does that tell you? Right. Every question I have for the rest of this season is, can the offensive line adjust? Can the offensive line put something together that you can do something on the left side of the field? Because right now, anytime they would try to go left, it seemed they were just buggered, and all the pressure came from the left, including that blindside hit. So that's my initial impression. I like the increase in pressure that they put on defense. However, I will tell you also saw the big plays that you could give up as a result of taking those risks and throwing in extra blitzers, etc.
I'm disappointed in this. Ohio State got out-coached today. They got out-coached.
That's fair.
They were favored by 25.5. They're playing at home. Coming off a loss, coming off a bye. And listen, I said all week, Nebraska's not the team that lost by 49 to Indiana.
No.
Indiana's good.
No.
Nebraska's not that bad.
No.
But they did lose to Indiana by 49. They come in here, they're leading Ohio State in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
At the Horseshoe. Matt Rule outcoached Ryan Day. The assistant coaches outcoached Ohio State's assistant coaches. Very disappointing.
So I agree with that. You saw a little bit of maturation from Raiola that he learned how to attack pressure coming at his face, right? Sorry, I had a cough.
You love to do that.
At the same time, you also saw the weakness on the offensive line, which made it easy for the Nebraska coaches to outcoach you on offense. I had some head scratchers on play calling from Chip. I don't know what he was thinking on a couple of those. I actually give grace to Will Howard. Will Howard on that interception. Did you see what JJ did on the outside of? So he was set wide left. And did you see what he did on that play?
Tell me.
He did absolutely nothing. He never left his position at the line of scrimmage, and it was his defender that jumped off of him and made the interception. He stood there at the line of scrimmage and never moved. You can see it on the replay. When they show that replay, you see it happening.
And I thought overall Will Howard played well. I mean, he started 10 for 10. He started 10 for 10 with
10 for 10, then 0 for 4, 0 for 4 with a INT, and then finished with a flare of 3 for 3, and the last pass was a touchdown. They always say, hey, they remember the last thing you did, right? Not the stuff in the middle. And his last pass was a touchdown that sealed it. So, brought him back. And then, of course, the interception sealed it. But I agree with you. And every time we've talked, I've said that it appears to me, I said it from the first game when I listed out everything he did. He feels streaky to me. 10 for 10, 0 for 4 with a pick, 3 for 3. That can happen in natural game flow. It absolutely can happen. But it appears to me that happens every game with Will Howard. Somewhere in the middle, he's going to get cold.
Mahalski was struggling big time, and then he gets hurt. Donovan Jackson then moves the left tackle. I mean, I don't know. Is that really the long-term solution? We're going to put a guy that's maybe 6'4"?
Yeah.
I don't
think that's the long-term
solution. Is that really the solution?
No, I don't think that's the long-term solution. I think it's the best answer they had in the middle of the game. But we talked, you and I texted a little bit about this offseason and the problem with offensive line recruiting. And I think you and I both landed on, if they stay healthy, we'll be okay. Well, your best offensive lineman went out, and now you're not healthy, and his terrible backup. They're people. I apologize. The person who was his backup that played terribly is now, who knows what the injury is, but he had to be helped off and didn't appear to put a lot of weight or movement into that leg when he was walking off. I don't know what the long-term answer is, but I don't think a 6'4" guy who's a really, really good guard is somebody that's going to shift out and make you a really, really good left tackle. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you talk about a flip from right to left. I don't know. I'm glad I'm not in the team room this week trying to figure it out. I'll tell you that.
I will say this, like I did jot down in my notes, I did now the defense was put in some bad positions, but overall I thought they did better job of getting pressure.
Yeah.
We actually saw some twists from the D lines, like, whoa, wow. Yeah. They've graduated to like high school level defensive line play. Maybe it's not as antiquated as we thought. Maybe it's just I don't know, more like 80s. No, instead of like 40s. But seriously, I did jot down. I thought the defense overall played well. Got more pressure on the quarterback, knocked Raiola down a little bit.
Yeah,
as I said, had some twists, did some different stuff. I like that.
Yeah, so I think you saw a new energy from the defense, right? They like, you could see the defensive line loved the idea that they were going to be able to do more than just cage rush, do more than just contain. JTT had a sack. He had 2 tackles for loss. I don't know that he had 2 tackles for loss the whole season beyond sacks, right? So it's great to see that kind of energy. I still tell you that you wind up leaving yourself exposed for those big plays. Everybody loves a sack. Everybody loves a tackle for loss. And they did bring a lot of heat this time. I was surprised at the end of the game, it only wound up being 3 sacks. I would have thought it was more. Just in my head, it felt like more. But I guess it was more pressure than anything else. And the one time when they brought the house, I wrote about this in the analysis as well, was you saw that 38-yard run from Raiola, and he's not a guy that should run 38 yards anywhere.
No.
Corey Simon was a beast. He seemed like he was making every big play out there, including that goal line stand where he wrapped him up and did not let him get across the goal line. It was beautiful. He is, I don't know how far back I'd go, but he's best linebacker we've had here in a little while.
I thought Cody Simon was struggling kind of early in the game. Then he played really well, like you said.
Oh, he stepped it up.
Oh, yeah.
He stepped it up. I agree with you. So he had a couple of things early, but like kind of like Will Howard, people remember what you did last. And by the end of the game, he had the huge stop at the goal line. He wound up with a tackle for loss. I think on the last play, he swung wide. Not the last play, on the last series, he swung wide and covered ground and got him tackled the guy out on the left side as well. All in the last 5 minutes of the game for those two. I thought he played really well and appeared to have some degree of range there today.
I always forget because I've talked about it. I asked Bill about it. I don't think I've asked you about the targeting penalty on Arvell Reese yet. We can't go one game without a questionable targeting penalty, can we?
Do it.
Good thing they reviewed it for like 10 minutes to still get it wrong. How do you review that for 10 minutes and still get it wrong? That's not targeting by any letter of the law. He didn't launch. It's just, it pisses me off. And I'm one that I want guys who are headhunters to be penalized. That's the spirit of the rule.
That's the spirit of the
rule. Awful call.
So I agree. When I watched it live, I immediately said, before I even saw a flag, they're gonna throw that for target.
I did too.
Said it out loud.
Yep. I did too.
And then I saw the flag come in. I was like, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I just assume anytime a Buckeye gets flagged for targeting, they're going to review it and it's going to be targeting and just say thank you, salute smartly, and carry on. And that's exactly what happened here. I don't think it was targeting. Did he hit him up around the head neck area? Sure. But like they said on the broadcast, he was bracing. He was not launching. And if anything, he was certainly not delivering a blow. When you think about how he was already going down, right? He was already starting to fold back. And so that snap that looks so nasty in live action, when you slow that to slow-mo, you see that that's all a part of the way he was falling. And that should not have been targeting in my mind. It was. And then the nastiness with some people throwing bottles. Can't have that.
I was wondering, people were joking like, oh, should we throw stuff on the field now? Because isn't that the protocol now? Oh, that really happened. I missed that.
Oh, yeah. No, that's that evidently they pulled the players away from the sidelines, etc. It didn't approach anything like Bottlegate up in Cleveland.
What about Texas?
But
what about Texas,
guys? Show some class.
No.
A call didn't go your way. Suck it up, man.
That's why I didn't like that Texas. Even though they got it right, first of all, they lied. They were like, "Oh, we talked about it." Like, no, you didn't. You looked up and saw that you got it wrong, or somebody buzzed down and told you. And then it makes it, even though this is not why they did it. They did it because they knew the call. If they thought the call was right, they would have kept it. What they did in that Texas game. But it makes it look like because the Texas kids threw all the stuff on the field that's why they reversed it. Yeah, I mean, that's a terrible precedent. And then you have Ohio State kids doing the same thing today.
Oh, absolutely!
I missed that. I was probably ranting around, so pissed off at that call. I completely missed the kids throwing stuff on the field. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
Almost throwing your headset like Ryan Day. That was so fantastic. Did you see that replay of
I
Ryan
did see
Day
that.
throwing his headset, but he never let it go. He did the whole motion of it, and then he comes back up, and it's still in his hand. I mean, it's attached to him anyway by cable. It's not like he's going to run away from it. But Ryan, you can control yourself better than that. Just yell at the refs on the sidelines like Lloyd Carr did or something.
Did you notice he had the replay official was apoplectic about Ryan Day not getting a penalty there? I'm like, that's what you're mad about?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You're mad Ryan Day didn't get a 15-yard penalty there? They just kicked the kid out of a game for a great defensive play.
Agreed.
Great
100%. And
not only did he not get rewarded for a great defensive play, he gets kicked out of the game. And the stupid replay official is Mike Pereira. Is that who it is?
Yeah.
He's worried about Ryan Day not getting a penalty.
Yeah.
These guys, replay officials are the worst because, first of all, it's the easiest job in the world. But when they're one other guy, they're a fraternity. They're a fraternity or they're officials. It'd be like a cop or another cop, or you're a military guy. You don't want to rip another military guy, right?
Right.
The officials are in a fraternity. They don't want to rip each other, even when it's obvious. So it's the easiest job in the world, but then they get stuff wrong and they don't want to admit it. So Mike Pereira, go fly a kite that you're mad that Ryan Day didn't get a penalty there, when you should be mad at your boys kicking a guy out of the game for a great defensive penalty. Am I getting a little mad here? I don't care.
So I agree with all of that. Everything you said is 100% true. But what's going through my head now is the effect that this has on the game next week, right? Because he's out for next week because it happened so late in the game.
Is he out for the first half of the entire game? First half.
First half. He's out for the first
half.
half. That's correct. He's out for the first half. But you're going in.
They better watch out in the second half. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, well, so piece all this together, right? Bits of evidence that we have. We are at a minimum with Zen as our left tackle, unless he's hurt, and now you're into your third option for what your new left tackle is, whoever that is. You have Reese now is out for the first half of next week. We had against a team that got ripped for 200 yards rushing last year. We had the best pair of running backs on any team in America, average 2.9 and 2.5 yards per carry. I have concern. You're not playing at a championship level, and you have a nasty team and a nasty place to play next week. We can make all the jokes we want about, James Franklin's going to James Franklin at some point, but he hasn't yet. So you have to go in with the mentality of how do we handle this, and how far behind the 8 ball are we with these kinds of things stacked up. I think the defense will be fine. I really do. I think the defense is going to be absolutely fine. You'll have somebody can suck it up for the first half, but I have serious concerns about the offensive line.
Heater, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for your insights. Thanks for staying on a little extra long as I sore throat. My voice is a little scratchy. Appreciate you, my man, in Amsterdam.
My man. Hey, I appreciate being on here. Have folks check out the immediately after the game analysis and beat me up if you think I'm wrong.
And tell him if you think he's right. Just be honest.
Amen.
Heater likes your honesty.
Amen, brother.
He's a straightforward dude. He's a good guy. All right, my man. Appreciate you.
All right, later.
Thank you. He is Heath Schneider. We're going to hear from Patrick Murphy and Steve Helwagen. Post-game interviews are going to be wrapping up pretty soon. Ryan Day's portion is already wrapped up. They're waiting on Will Howard, and then it should be the end of the press conference. Let's get to some things here. Lynn's Breezy on YouTube. She says, Day in his presser is talking as if the performance was fine. I imagine he was parodying a little bit what he said right after the game on TV. I don't know. I hear what you're saying. Like I imagine behind closed doors he doesn't think it's fine, is my guess. I hope he realizes beating Nebraska by 4. And it's not like you beat them by 4 and they scored like a late touchdown to make it look good. Like you were trailing by 3 points in the fourth quarter at home in a game you're favored by 25.5. No bueno. Now that's fine if you're a team that's like, we're trying to be 9-3, maybe, or 10-2, and maybe be in the mix to get in the playoffs, maybe be a 10 seed in the playoff. If that's your goal, then this game is fine. That's not the goal. What they say all year, national championship or bust. We're going to win every game, Denzel Burke. Well, that's already off the table. Now, national championship or bust is not off the table. But if Ryan Day's really happy with this performance, or says if it's fine, then I'm disappointed. But Lynn's, I would say that's just what he's saying publicly, and he's actually pissed, is my guess. Hope I'm right. Because, it'd be pretty bad if he's actually happy with that. It'd be pretty bad. Here's another thing we're going to hear from here we go. Todd on YouTube talking about the call on Arvell Reese. Here's what's going to happen. Guarantee you. On Tuesday, we're going to ask Ryan Day about it. He's like, yeah, the Big Ten reached out and apologized and said it shouldn't have been targeting. Then why in the hell did it take them 10 minutes to review it and they still called it targeting? Unbelievable. I'm not joking. This is not hyperbole. It is the easiest job in the world being a replay official. When you consider all of the angles they have, all of the cameras in high definition, in slow motion, it's the easiest thing in the world, and they still screw it up all the time. It's amazing. It's almost impressive how consistently bad they are. To be that consistent at something is hard. See, when John Wooden, the great former UCLA coach, said consistency is the hallmark of greatness. That's not what he meant. But somehow replay officials live by that credo. David on Facebook. Chip Kelly's play calling was terrible. Correct. It was like your son plays youth football. I bet his coach could have called a better game than that. And I like Chip Kelly overall. I don't know what he was doing today. Did he take the last 2 weeks off? Was he hanging out with Noah Ruggles? Did they take a vacation to Hawaii or something? I have no idea what Chip Kelly was doing today. I mean, listen, just lose the little screen pass on 3rd and long. Like, lose that. Flush that one. Oh, my God. And you're going to face much. And Nebraska's got a couple of dudes on their defensive line. Let's be clear about that. They've got some dudes. But you're going to face much better defenses than that. Both things are true. Christopher on YouTube. When will people start holding players accountable? The coaches can't play and coach. I agree with that. I think we're doing both. And it used to be a faux pas to rip on the players, right? Because they're amateurs and all this. Well, some of these guys are making a lot of money, okay? All of them are making some money. So I agree. It's not out of bounds anymore. These guys are basically pro athletes. You can't have it both ways. Now, I don't think you should go out of your way to just rip on college athletes because they're getting paid. But, yeah, when Zen Michalski plays like complete crap, you can talk about that. And I feel bad that Zen got hurt. And it does concern me that Zen was the best option, they thought. And he looked awful. And I'm not convinced Donovan Jackson's the answer. And if that was the answer for this game, but not going forward, then why would you do it this game? You didn't have a contingency plan in place that you would use. Let's say if Zen got sick before the game. How's that any different than going into next week without Zen? That sounds like that is their contingency plan, is Donovan Jackson, left tackle, Luke Montgomery, left guard. We'll see. With as bad as Zen played, I really don't think it could get worse at left tackle. So maybe Donovan will be an improvement at left tackle over Zen, but how's Luke? Luke's not going to be an improvement over Donovan at left guard. So I don't know. The domino effect is not good there as my voice continues to go out on me. Still got, I think, enough water left for the show. We'll hear from my boys here pretty soon. So, yeah, Chip Kelly's got to be way better. I've been really impressed with Chip Kelly overall. Not good. Ohio State not being able to run the ball against Nebraska. Come on. At home, coming off a bye, coming off a loss. Oh, they're angry now. And they come out there and they put that BS up. Not good. Trailing in the fourth quarter. Should we give Nebraska some credit? Yes, we should. We should. Because I think Matt Rule, first of all, I think everybody looked at what happened last week. Like, oh, Nebraska sucks. They really don't. If you look at their whole season, they were tooth and nail with Illinois. Not that Illinois is a great team. They're losing 14-3 at Oregon right now. But Illinois is a legit ranked team. They're ranked 20th. Nebraska, Illinois is basically a 50-50 game. Illinois won that game 14-7. Nebraska beat what turns out to be a pretty good Colorado team. So, no, Nebraska, I'm not saying Nebraska is like a good team, but it's not like they suck, okay? But you're favored by 25.5. You're at home, and you come out there and you barely win. Very disappointing, especially with all the talk about all in this year. Everybody's focused on, they just do not. I keep coming back to this. They just don't have the look of a national championship team. Then again, neither did 2002 for most of the year. Now, 2002 never lost a game, but did they have the look of a national championship team? Not until they won it, really. But they won it. 2014 didn't look like a national championship team until, I guess, the Wisconsin game, Cardale's first start. I mean, I guess you win 59-0 in the Big Ten championship game. In a game you were the underdog. That's still the funniest thing about, well, that's not, I guess the funniest thing is they won 59-0. The second funniest thing is Ohio State was a 4.5-point underdog to the Badgers in that game. Ohio State was an underdog in a game. They won 59-0 in the Big Ten championship game. And then beating Alabama, beating Oregon. Just amazing. So, like, you never know. We might, even though right now it seems like this is ridiculous. This is sugarcoated. I feel it right now. I feel like I almost don't believe what I'm saying. But, like, I think both things can be true. That they don't look like a national championship team. Because they don't. They don't look like a national championship team. Could they still win the national championship? Perhaps. I don't see a juggernaut. Again, Oregon is your number one team right now. Ohio State almost beat them at their place. Georgia is the betting favorite to win the national championship. Guess who number 2 is? Ohio State. Ohio State's got the second best odds to win the national championship. Maybe that'll change after today. But the point is, and Georgia coming off a really good win where they look great. But Georgia's looked very pedestrian for the majority of this season. So if those are your 2 best teams in whatever order, Georgia and Oregon, I keep looking over my TV like you guys know what I'm looking at. If those are your 2 best teams, Ohio State's right there, but like Ohio State's got to clean some stuff up. And now with the questions on the offensive line, it's going to be tough. You lose Simmons. I think only Seth McLaughlin would have been a bigger loss. And maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe Simmons is a bigger loss than Seth would have been. I'm glad Seth is okay. Also, speaking of that, what's happened with Carson Hinsman? We need an APB on Carson Hinsman. I have no idea what's going on. Hopefully my boys join pretty soon because my throat is going to give out pretty soon. We'll see, which is awesome because I get to also host a radio show tomorrow here in Columbus from 9 to 11. We'll take a lot of calls on that show. I'll have to let my co-host Scotty Vegas do a lot of talking as well. Again, I don't think, Will Starr. The sky, I agree with your sentiment. He's basically saying that making fun of people acting like the sky is falling. I hear you. It's Ohio State won. They could have lost this game. They didn't. All their goals are ahead of them. There's not a juggernaut in college football. I don't know what my rationale is here. I do think they're going to beat Penn State next week. I do think Ohio State's going to be in the Big Ten championship game against Oregon in Indy. We'll see what happens there. I think Ohio State will be favored in that game. So we'll see what happens. Let's see how close my boys are to jumping on here. Close? I bet they are. Give me just a second. I don't want you to mute my. Yeah, you guys do not need to hear me cough there. So we'll hear from. I'm really curious if Patrick and Steve have the same viewpoint. I know, Linz Breezy was saying that Dave was a little too rosy for her taste in the postgame presser, acting like everything's fine. Curious if they had that same view and if they think maybe that's just like what I was thinking. If he did have that attitude, maybe that's just him not wanting to air the dirty laundry publicly. He actually is pissed behind closed doors and didn't want to act like it publicly. Who knows? Hunter on YouTube. Donovan Jackson at left tackle might end up being awesome. It might, but now you're taking a hit at left guard. I don't know how big of a hit, but Luke Montgomery's not going to be on Donovan's level at left guard. Now, if Luke can be close to what Donovan was, no, that's great. If Luke can be close to what Donovan was at left guard, and then Donovan can be, much better than Zen, maybe not better than Josh at left tackle, that's a net positive. What you don't want is to move your left guard who's playing well to left tackle, and you get a little bit of a bump there, but then you'd have a big dip at left guard. Not a net. That could be a net negative. So we'll see what happens. I mean, my goodness gracious. It is. KJ says, isn't tackle more important? I would agree. Left tackle is more important than left guard, for sure. Absolutely. To your point, yes. There's no doubt about it. All right, let's get to one more question here. Charles on YouTube. We definitely will be in the transfer portal for a left tackle if Simmons doesn't come back. Yeah. And I thought for sure Simmons would go pro. He probably still will. For those that don't know, he's a fourth-year junior. He does have another year of eligibility left. I thought he was a lock to go pro. I still think he will, even though because he doesn't have ideal size for a tackle at 6'5". Not that he's extremely undersized or anything, but, the NFL, they like their 6'6" tackles. He's a little undersized, but not that much. And now coming off the injury, probably fourth-round pick, I would guess somewhere around there where I would have said second-day pick before the injury. So second or third round. So I'll probably drop him not that much, maybe to the fourth round. So maybe with NIL and everything, he'll come back. We saw that a lot with these guys who came back this year. None of those guys would have been first-round picks, probably not second-round picks, but a lot of them would have been third- or fourth-round picks, and they came back. So we'll see if that is the case with Josh Simmons. If not, I agree with you, Charles. They will be – I would submit to the court they need 2 offensive linemen in the portal. and not like what they got. Who was the guy they got from Cutler? They got the Cutler guy, not like it's just a warm body from Louisiana Monroe, like an actual like Seth McLaughlin, Josh Simmons, 2 guys that can start, not warm bodies. You can just find you can find guys in Ohio high school to be if you need a warm body. I'm going to need a couple of starters from the portal. All right, we're going to hear from Patrick and Steve soon. They're walking out of the press conference now. Yeah, I agree with that. We have someone saying it's the arm length that really matters. That's true. I get it. But a lot of times those things are intertwined. If you're a tall dude, usually you have long arms. Obviously, there are some guys that are 6'5" with shorter arms and guys that are 6'5" with longer arms. I get that. Simmons doesn't have extremely long arms, though. I don't think he has short arms. Josh Fryer's got really long arms, interestingly. Josh Fryer, have you guys seen Josh Fryer's arms? I mean, this dude's got like – he's got like the arms of like a 6'10" guy or something like that. But, yeah, we'll see. If we look back on – if Ohio State does somehow achieve all their goals this year, we'll just look back on this as that was a character-building win today. If they don't achieve their goals today, we'll say this was another warning sign that this team wasn't nearly as good as we thought. And tell you what, Jim Tressel loved – I know he didn't come up with it, but Jim Tressel loved to say – September is for pretenders. November is for contenders. Well, November is going to be interesting this year, my friends, with Penn State, Indiana. Then they give Purdue and Northwestern. Don't forget Michigan. It's going to be interesting. Patrick Murphy, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm fine. I've got my Gooder sunglasses that I'm going to put on here because it's very bright. Dave, before you start asking me questions, I wanted to talk about today. This day at Ohio State was weird from the beginning. I was just talking to a couple of the people that were at the Skull session. Apparently the team arrived 10 minutes late. Ryan Day was frustrated with one of the technical staffers. They seemed to be arguing coming in. It kind of delayed everything getting over here. Obviously the team gets off to a slow start. Everything just felt off about today. And I think I may go back to that as we talk about this, but I don't know why coming off this off week, you're behind schedule, whatever it may be, but something was not right. And I don't know who you blame for that, but I think you talk so much about routine and they have these routines. Even going out to Oregon 2 weeks ago, they wanted to stay on the same routine. That's why they flew out Friday. When that gets thrown off for whatever reason, I think that affects things. And then obviously you don't play well and there's a lot of different reasons for that, but getting here this morning, just kind of everything felt weird. And then the game starts and it just carried through. And even the press conference, it was hurried just now. Obviously they're disappointed and want to get out of here, but despite the win. But yeah, it was a weird day here at Ohio Stadium.
We had a comment earlier from longtime loyal listener, Lynn's Breezy, saying she watched Day's press conference. She felt like her takeaway was like he acted like everything was fine. Was that your takeaway? And if so, do you think he actually feels that way? Or you think that was just him putting on a front in front of the meeting? He's actually pissed off.
Well, I only heard about half of it because they started bringing players out. So I had to move back there. But I do think this is his nature. I think when they win, and look, this was true we talked to Cody Simon, we talked to Ty Hamilton. Will Howard spoke as well. I think Jordan Hancock, I think Steve talked to him. All of the guys are trying to spin this as, look, we were able to win the game. Ryan Day was talking about winning in the fourth quarter, which is something that this team hasn't been able to do, though this is not a top 5, top 10 team, which is where those problems normally lie. I mean, I think there's some truth to that. Like maybe there was Cody Simon even got asked about this. Maybe there was a little bit too much thinking and talking about that Oregon game, and you're still kind of have that in the back of your head instead of thinking about Nebraska as much as you should have. I think that there is that. I don't expect Ryan Day to just come out and say we suck. That's just not what he does. That's not what any coach does. Well, some coaches might, but yeah, I don't believe that is how Ryan Day necessarily really feels. I think he's pretty frustrated. We were standing right behind the bench or right behind the sideline when the targeting review was happening, and that is a frustrated guy. I mean, obviously the play frustrated him, but it was a guy who was ready to explode. I think if they'd called it the other way, he still might have exploded in joy because there's just there's a lot on him. And I think we know that, the pressure of the last few years and losing to Michigan and what this team has expectation wise and everything. So I agree with the comment. I do think he, kind of tried to downplay a lot of things, but I just think that's his nature. I don't think that is truly how he feels. And I imagine that was not his demeanor in the locker room or won't be, going forward.
What do you say about injuries, if anything, about Zen, anything else? Anything? Did he mention how long Lathan's going to be out? Anything about injuries?
Yeah, you double check with Steve because he was listening to more of that than I was, though he did have to pop over to Jordan Hancock. Just kind of they do things simultaneously. While I was listening, he was asked about left tackle and Zen. He did not mention how bad it was, but again, standing on the sideline where we were at the end of the game, Zen could not put weight on one leg as he was helped over. As he walked by us to go to the blue tent, he was just dropping F-bomb after F-bomb, seemed to be in a lot of pain. And then right at the end, as I was walking back after the interception, walked by the tent, they'd put it down. He was on crutches, didn't move at all. He was just kind of using them to balance, and then they put him on a cart and took him off. So I know Tim May had tweeted out that he thought it might be a hip injury. I didn't actually see the play because of where we were, so it was hard to tell. But it does not look good. He said as of right now, the plan coming in today was if they needed somebody, they would move Donovan Jackson over to left tackle. And I think it was Luke Montgomery who went in at guard, if I'm not mistaken.
Nope.
Again, hard to see. But going forward, they will evaluate that. I think they were probably going to have to evaluate it anyway. I thought Zen had some good plays. Obviously, the bad ones really stand out, but it certainly was noticeable that you didn't have Josh Simmons today.
Yeah, and I don't know what you thought, but it was a disappointing performance overall from Ohio State. But I think if you're an Ohio State fan, you're way more disappointed in the offense than the defense.
Yeah, weird, right? Coming out of last week where 2 weeks ago, I guess I should say, and this past week, all of our questions almost, we talked about it on Tuesday after the press conference. Almost all of the questions were about the defense. And maybe that's why the defense played well today, because the focus was so much on the improvements there. But the inability to run the ball, I mean, that's going to hurt this offense. There's so much that Will Howard does and this passing attack does that uses play action. And I think some of that is credit to Nebraska. Will Howard said that they had some different fronts ready for them. He also said they called 2 perfect blitzes for run plays that Ohio State had that they thought they were going to be able to hit on. So, he kind of tipped his hat a little bit. But weird. I was not worried about this offense. Now, Nebraska has a top 20 statistical defense. They have been, I think they're number 17 in the country in sacks, but it wasn't against this Ohio State offense. I think one of our roundtable questions was about this, and I think all of us pretty much said, no, we're feeling pretty confident that the Buckeyes will be fine offensively. Again, I'll go back to how I started. Maybe it was just kind of a weird day, thrown off by some things early on, and then you don't have your left tackle. And things are just out of sorts from the beginning. Will Howard did say, when asked about that last drive where they did get something going, he felt like that first play, having positive yards, a positive play, was really what kind of sparked that drive.
I'm asking you to spitball here. Do you think going forward, if Zen is out long term, you think they're going to stick with Donovan Jackson at left tackle and Luke Montgomery at left guard?
I guess. I mean, what are our options here if you're Ohio State? Look, we've talked about it for 2 years, the offensive line recruiting. And, I've said, I think it's if you can develop talent, Justin Fry can turn some of those guys that maybe weren't rated as highly into better players, then you're okay. But when something like this happens, there's not time to develop, right? And Ben is a guy who's obviously been here 4 years, but now you're moving a guy to left tackle, and Donovan Jackson probably, who I think the last time he played tackle was probably his freshman year when he played some of that Bison role. So not ideal, though he is talented, and I think he can probably do a job there. And then you have to think what happens at left guard. Luke Montgomery is a talented player, but clearly hasn't been pegged to be ready yet, or else he'd be out there. The right guard job was open, obviously, in fall camp. So it's going to be very unfortunate if you look back on this season and think and decide that it was derailed because they didn't have the depth on the offensive line that the Buckeyes wanted. I'm not ready to say that is going to happen. I still think this team has the ability to do what it wants to do, but this was not the performance you wanted to see after one injury and now a second.
we'll get you out of here on this. Lathan Ransom, obviously out. Coach Dave said not long term, but I doubt he plays next week. But Jalen McClain, true freshman, got his first career start. I thought he played pretty well.
Yes, they did a lot of different things in the secondary. Various guys were in there. Lorenzo Stiles, so that Jordan Hancock could play more deep safety. You had Jermaine Matthews out there at the nickel spot at times. So it appeared like Ohio State was trying to look at some different things, or maybe they were all very situational. I'll have to go back and look at that. If you're Lathan Ransom, obviously you'd love to be back next week. He was on the sideline. He's in street clothes, but no boot on the foot or anything, which I think is a positive. You never know, but you'd love to have him next week. I also think they won't rush him back, given that they did see some positive things and the defense was able to play. It will be a different challenge next week, right? You're defending a guy like Tyler Warren. Drew Aller, I think, even though he didn't have a great season last year, is playing much better in a new offense. So certainly a more difficult challenge for this secondary in a week's time. Really unfortunate for the injury bug to start hitting Ohio State here, right as you start the second half of the season, where it's going to get a lot tougher.
Patrick, great stuff. I appreciate it, man.
Hey, Dave, one last thing.
Yeah.
The kicker. I was waiting for you to bring it up. I had, as you know, because you were in the mentions on Twitter, if you are a soccer player, and I'm not saying this to you, I'm saying more to the people on Twitter. You are a soccer player, as I was. You never kick a ball like you're kicking a field goal. Like, goalies kick the ball, but you don't kick like to aim at something up in the air. It's just, if you're doing both things, you can work on both things. But the people on Twitter that were telling me how many different kickers there are in the NFL that played soccer, that I think there were 3 that were brought up, and that's 3 out of a lot of people who've tried it. So I know you were joking. I know we went back and forth on text during the game, but I needed to respond to some of those people on Twitter that I didn't get to during the game.
There you go. I'm sure all of them are listening right now.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah. Thanks, Pat. Appreciate it.
All right. See you guys.
Let's bring in Steve Helwagen. All right, Steve, your thoughts from this 21-17 win over Nebraska.
Well, in every championship season, there's going to be a game or two like this that you can't really explain. And I think, like the Cincinnati game in 2002 and, Penn State in 2014 where, it goes to double overtime and different games like that. But I don't know. Nebraska came in off a 56-7 loss last week at Indiana, and they had some great answers for what Ohio State was trying to do offensively. Basically shut down the run game. Ohio State netted something like 60 yards on 30 attempts, whatever the exact numbers were, about 2 yards an attempt. And just never was able to establish the run and gain control of the game, like Ryan Day said. And you came out of the Oregon game worried about the defense and how bad that they had played. And then you come to find out, you get here, and the defense, keeps you in it, wins the game for you at the end with the interception by Hancock, although there were a lot of penalties that sustained drives along the way. But, Cody Simon played maybe his best game as a Buckeye today. They did get a few sacks, which were nice to see finally. So, Raiola, at times, you just had to kind of tip your cap to him. He played pretty well. But in the end, Ohio State was able to make just enough plays to get out of here, to escape their home stadium, 25-point favorite, win the game by 4, 21-17. And ultimately, in 100 years, all that will matter is that on this date, October the 26th, 2024, Ohio State was able to defeat Nebraska 21-17. That's a 5-win Nebraska team that should become bowl eligible next week at home playing against UCLA. May not win many more after that. You look at their schedule. Not a lot of easy games after that. The schedule makers said, Nebraska, let's match them up against every other named school in this league. And so their stretch run is going to be a little bit difficult, but if they get to 6, they'll throw a parade for Matt Rule. They haven't been to a bowl since 2016. So it looked like a bowl team to me today. I'll say that.
Yeah, no question about it. I think they have their right coach for sure. What stood out from the press conference from Coach Day? We had some people in the chat saying he sounded a little too rosy for their pace. They wanted him to come in more like pissed off. And maybe he is pissed off. He just didn't want to like do that in front of the media. Your main takeaways from what Coach Day said, and maybe anything else from the post-game presser?
Yeah, I understand that. And I understand where people are coming from. It's a long, go back to my first answer. It's a long season. And you can't push the panic button in week 7, with 5 more games in the regular season and possible postseason as well. So today would have been devastating. I don't know that there's a path back to the Big Ten championship game with the second loss, the way things are shaping up, unless some other top teams, go by the wayside. But I don't know. To me, you had to win this game one way or the other. And to be honest with you, you probably need to win next week's game too if you want to get to the Big Ten championship game. So that's kind of my thought just sitting here today, is that, their margin for error is gone. And, are you happy that you only won this game the way that you did? No, probably not. But again, you're not machines. You have to go out there on the football field and win the game. And that's just kind of the way it's always been. And, I thought the defense played pretty well on the whole. Got some turnovers when they had to have them. Obviously, the interception at the end was huge. And, obviously the stop at the 1 yard line was huge. Davison Igbinosun going up over the top to knock the running back backwards. And, that's the second game in a row they've had to do some shenanigans on the goal line. And, this team just hasn't clicked all together yet. I think that's probably the best way we can put it, is this thing just hasn't clicked together yet. Despite everyone's best efforts, they don't come out of the open week with any kind of momentum at all, and didn't play. They played down to the level of their competition. Didn't look like a national championship caliber team in any way, shape, or form today. But, like Will Howard said, a win is a win. So got that going for you, which is good.
We'll get you out here on this. Just any parting thoughts, your thoughts next week about Penn State, anything about today you haven't mentioned. Just we'll get you out of here on anything you want to say, Mr. Helwagen.
Yeah, I think next week's going to be a lot of fun. I think that game will build itself up. Penn State's got a tough one tonight. Everybody clue into NBC at 7:30 p.m. tonight, and we'll get to watch what Penn State has to offer this season. I think Wisconsin has played some really good football the last several weeks and is primed to give them one heck of a game tonight, if not knock them off. I think they're only favored by 6.5, something like that tonight. And the young running back and the young quarterback from Wisconsin have really stepped up as first-year starters, and we'll see tonight if Penn State can go on the road in a tough environment and pull out the big win over Wisconsin and really set the stage for what would be, it appears, number 2 versus number 4 perhaps next week. I don't know if pollsters will drop Ohio State. Don't really care. It doesn't matter. You're not really playing for pole position at this point. You're playing to get into that Big Ten championship game. That's all that matters at this point for Ohio State. So, we are in for one hell of a game next Saturday at noon in Happy Valley. And looking forward to that, no question.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate your time and your insights, my man.
All right, Dave. Take care.
Steve Helwagen live from the Horseshoe. Thanks to Steve. All right, guys. Normally I would go for about another 10 minutes, but not really feeling up to it with my voice, and seems to be getting a little worse. I really appreciate you guys joining me. We have a very large live audience here. Thank you so much. Thanks to all of my guests. Thanks to the Dean of Ohio State Football Recruiting, Bill Kurelic. Thanks to my man in Amsterdam, Heath Schneider. And live from Ohio Stadium, thanks to Patrick Murphy and Steve Helwagen. I really appreciate all those guys. And, of course, I appreciate you guys so much Join us all week for Bucknuts. Morning 5. Join me next week after the Penn State game. Hopefully a win over Penn State for what we learned live. Thanks again to all of my guests, and thanks to all of you. Hope everyone enjoys the rest of your weekend. Go Bucks.